One man, sitting in his office, made $1 billion in a single day. He didn't build a company. He didn't invent anything. He didn't even leave the building. He just made a bet against an entire country's money, and he won. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how he did it, why the British government had no choice but to hand him the money, and what this story reveals about how power and money actually work in the real world. Most people think governments control money. They don't. Not always. Sometimes one person with enough information and enough nerve can corner a government, force it into a trap, and walk away richer than most countries will ever be. That's what happened in September 1992. And here's the part nobody talks about. The British government knew it was coming. They just thought it couldn't happen to them. To understand this story, you need to understand one thing first. Europe had a system. It was called the exchange rate mechanism, or the ERM. Think of it like a group of countries, all agreeing to keep their currencies close together in value, like a money pact. No one's currency could get too strong or too weak compared to the others. Britain joined this pact in 1990, and from day one, it was a problem. See, when Britain joined, the pound was locked in at a rate that was too high. The British economy was struggling. Unemployment was rising. People were losing jobs. But because of the ERM rules, Britain couldn't just lower the value of its currency to help the economy. They were stuck. It's like someone putting on shoes 2 sizes too small and promising they'd never take them off. Everyone in the financial world could see it. The pound was overvalued. Britain was under pressure. Something had to give. George Soros saw it too. Soros wasn't a bank. He wasn't a government. He was a hedge fund manager. His fund was called the Quantum Fund, and by the early 1990s, he had built it into one of the most powerful private investment funds in the world. He had a theory. He believed markets aren't always right. They can be pushed, they can be broken. And sometimes, the smart move is to bet on a breaking point before it breaks. Britain's ERM problem looked exactly like a breaking point. So Soros started building his plan quietly, slowly, over months. Here's how currency trading actually works. Simple version. Imagine you believe the value of something is about to drop. You borrow it at today's price. You sell it immediately. Then you wait for the price to fall, buy it back cheaper, and return it. You keep the difference. That's called short selling. Now, Soros borrowed billions of British pounds. Then he sold them all, fast. When you flood the market with a currency, its value starts to fall. That's just supply and demand. Too much of something means it's worth less. Now, Britain's government had a choice to keep the pound inside the ERM. They had to keep its value up, so they started buying pounds, spending their own reserves to prop it up, billions of dollars. But Soros kept selling. His fund wasn't alone either. Other traders saw what was happening and jumped in. It turned into a flood. And here's the part that really matters. Britain was spending real money. Soros was just moving paper. September 16, 1992. It was Black Wednesday. That morning, the British government tried everything. They raised interest rates once. The pound kept falling. They raised them again. Still falling. They announced they'd raise them a third time. Nobody believed them. By the afternoon, it was over. Britain had spent over £3 billion trying to hold the line. It wasn't enough. At 7:30 in the evening, the UK Chancellor of the Exchequer went on television. He announced Britain was leaving the ERM. The pound was free to fall, and fall it did. Soros closed his position. He had made just under $1 billion in one day. Now, remember what we said earlier? Why did Britain think they were safe? Because no one believed a private investor could move faster than a government. No one believed the market could beat the state. Britain's leaders assumed their reserves, their authority, and their reputation were enough armor. They were wrong. The system had a flaw. Soros found it, and he walked right through. Here's where most people stop the story. They say Soros is a villain or a genius, and they move on. But there's a bigger lesson here. Soros didn't steal anything. He didn't break a single law. He looked at a system built on promises that couldn't be kept. And he bet that eventually reality would win. It always does. Governments can delay reality. They can use force, policy, rules, all of it. But markets? Markets are just millions of people making decisions based on what they believe is true. And when enough people believe something is broken, it breaks. Britain's pound wasn't overvalued because Soros said so. It was overvalued long before he ever touched it. All he did was make the truth arrive faster. That's the uncomfortable part. The so-called villain in this story was just someone who understood the rules better than the people who made them. And that's the real lesson about money and power. The people with the best information and the clearest thinking, not always the ones with the most authority, are the ones who end up holding the wealth. After Black Wednesday, something strange happened. Britain's economy, the one everyone said was broken, actually started to recover. Interest rates dropped. Trade improved. Growth came back. Leaving the ERM turned out to be exactly what the economy needed, all along. The very pain of that day led to years of growth. Some economists now call it White Wednesday. And George Soros? He took that money and used it to fund scholarships, open society projects, and policy initiatives across the world. Whether you like him or not, the money moved. One man, one bet, $1 billion, and a government brought to its knees not by war, not by scandal, but by logic. If you want to understand how money really moves in this world, this story is just the beginning.